we're back. We have a great show today. Spicy subject, right? And Karina came up with this idea. It's the big D word, divorce. It happens to some of us, most of us. I mean, more than 50% of marriages end up in divorce. But I think we wanted to do the show because it's important, because we want to empower women. We want them to have knowledge.
Absolutely.
If they ever have to go through it. I've been through it. You guys can talk about your own experiences. But Genevieve took the day off. So we have our beautiful friend here, our amiga, Heather Hall. She is an attorney, and we're going to pick her brain, and she's going to help us know everything. So welcome, Heather. Oh, yay. So, okay, the big question that I want to know, what is something that you would tell every woman? Every woman getting married, or every woman that every one woman should know, doesn't matter the age.
Don't get married, don't get divorced. But if you have to, if you are having feelings like it's just not working out, you're done, and everyone has those feelings in marriage. But if you are having those feelings, you need to immediately go consult with an attorney, because I believe that might stop the divorce, or it will give you the tools that you need before you start that process. Because you need to prepare for a divorce just like you would prepare for a test, like you would prepare for opening a business. And I find that women tend to put more research into maybe a plastic surgeon or a bronzer than they will in what is their community estate. So I think sometimes it's rooted in fear.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't want to know. Sometimes it's rooted in denial. Sometimes the relationship is so broken that they can't have that conversation. But you would be surprised how many women do not know what they own. Yeah. So you've got to prepare for that.
Yeah, we've seen it with celebrities. And I think
normal people.
Well, and I think, listen, it was a Latina culture, and maybe and women in the old days, the husband took care of the finances, and women didn't ask. But now it's different times, and I think you're right. I think, and a lot of it is denial and not knowing, and maybe we don't want to face it, but it's going to come up either way.
It's going to come up. Absolutely. And then you have to look at your marriage as a business and a partnership. And so if you don't know the integral parts of that business, are you really in a good relationship? Are you in a business? Would you buy a franchise and then your partner say, well, you don't get to look at the books, you just get to invest in it?
That's right.
You would never do that, right?
I love the way you just framed that. Would you buy a business where you didn't look at the books and the paperwork and not know?
Right.
It's the same thing. And when you think about it that way, like a business to businesses merging, it kind of takes off that emotion, but we get emotions into it.
Yeah, and there's no way to separate the emotions from it, but you have to try your best to do that, because you need to look at it. A divorce it's breaking up of a partnership and a business, and so you have to look at it from a non-emotional standpoint, which is almost impossible.
Yeah. And like any big investment, any big business, you have to take your time, study the situation, see what it can be fixed in order not to be so traumatic.
Yes,
right. No, that's a good point.
Yes, and you're right. I love what you said. We research plastic surgeons. We research our doctors, our bronzer. You're absolutely right. What shoes do I wear?
Right.
I mean, it's not nonsense, of course, but this is important too, because how many of us know someone, if not ourselves? I mean, I've been through a divorce. I've been through two, and I certainly got wiser about it. But it does. I also have this perspective. It does make you more aware. It does take the emotion out of it. I have a different perspective once you've been through it. It's not the end of the world. And now I think there's good divorces. I used to think that it was a good and a bad person, and sometimes you just grow in different directions. And it's not a bad thing, because, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that what I have learned from my wealthier, maybe smarter clients is they're constantly working on an agreement to try to get this done in an amicable way.
Yes.
I always tell people, you don't want to throw good money after bad, meaning you need to have, if you don't know what your community estate is, right? So you don't...
And explain real quick, explain to us like we're 3 years old. What is community estate?
Okay. So I'll even back it up a little bit further. So when people come in, I explain there's two parts of a divorce, just to simplify it. There's the kid part if you have kids, and then there's the property part.
What you're worth, like the money, whatever.
Right. It would be equity in your home, equity in your vehicles, 401ks, IRAs, Bitcoin, a lot of maybe y'all's friends, husbands own LLCs or businesses, or y'all own businesses, right? So that's all part of the community estate. It's whatever was acquired, purchased, earned during the course of the marriage. Anything prior to the marriage may be considered separate property. Most likely it will be. Anything during the marriage is considered community property.
Okay.
So we're a community property state, so we're subject to a 50-50, or they try to equalize the division. Not to get too boring with it, but
Yeah. But that, we just, simplify in like layman's terms. Yeah, that makes sense. It's like what you're worth, your equity.
right. So you should know before you take part in a divorce, what is it that your partner has? Obviously, I would hope you know what you have, but what does your partner have? Is he an employee? Well, then he probably has a 401k.
That's right.
Does he have a pension? Does he have an additional IRA? Does he dabble in the stock market? Was he one of those guys that bought Bitcoin? All of those things you need to know. And there's ways you can find that out, even if you're not in the type of relationship where you can't speak to them about it. And there's people that are scared to speak to their partner about that.
And I remember of a case where the husband was like, well, that's my separate property, even though it was community property because it was bought during the marriage. How many times do you see that? It's not hers because it doesn't matter whose name it's in. But let's clarify this right now.
The house is mine because I paid the mortgage. No, that's not what the law says.
That's right.
That's one that they love to use. Okay, so there is, even if your partner has maybe a home or rental homes prior to marriage, you're entitled to, or you can pose or request a reimbursement for anything that improved that separate property, or even if you were paying down the mortgage. So say you marry someone, they have 5 rent houses, they had a mortgage on those rent houses, any community property that was used to pay down that mortgage, you're entitled to a 50% reimbursement claim. But people don't think of those things because they're typically used to listening to the partner who's saying, well, you're not entitled to any of that.
That's right.
You don't get any of it. Now, on the other hand, adultery does not get you 100% of the community estate.
That's a big misnomer, right? Well, he cheated, so I get everything.
Right, no.
Let's clear that up, too. Myths.
Now, I'm not saying adultery is okay.
Yeah, no. We're not.
Right?
No. But there are laws.
Right. And so
adultery can be women and
Yes. Absolutely. It goes both ways.
And
absolutely.
actually, probably, it's equal, nowadays. But so what adultery gives you, it doesn't give you the kids. It doesn't give you all of your money. It doesn't do any of those things. It allows you to say that there was fault in the breakup of the marriage. If that had not happened, you would not be divorced. And because of this, they're at fault, then they need to get a little bit less than the community estate. It's not 100%. It's not even 70% most of the time. And if you take it to a court,
it's like 1 or 2% or something, right?
It's extremely hard to get, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean,
to get a disproportionate.
Divorce can be. I mean, adultery is it's a big one, but there's like worse than that. Like when they manipulate it mentally, there are so many things that can be worse than adultery, and the worst to me is the way they start manipulating the children, and really, I mean, they don't understand that it's an investment. The happiness of your children eventually is gonna buy your back.
That's right.
Because if you make your children miserable, especially during a divorce, they're gonna be miserable in life, and they're gonna make your life miserable.
Oh yeah, and we all love our kids, right? For sure. So the last thing we want them to feel is pain. So the lack of a parent in their life, or having their parents fight, or one parent disparaging the other parent in front of them, that's something that stays with them. Yeah. And I mean, you wouldn't want to give your child a scar. Why would you want to give them that emotional scar?
That's right.
So we need to be careful.
It happens so much.
It happens all the time. And during a divorce, I see that people completely lose their mind.
Of course, man.
And it's like a roller coaster, right?
It's two people who know how to press each other's buttons.
And especially the one that was left, the one that made the decision to move forward, but the one that was left always is the sore one, and the one that attacked and used children, and that's horrible.
If we could give, like, I've been through a divorce, and I don't know, I mean, and you learn and you grow. But if you could give someone watching this today and you're going through it and it's the first time or the second, we all have a starter marriage. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm joking. I'm being funny. Don't worry about your first one. The second one gets easier. The third, I'm a pro. I'm joking. The third to my husband. I'm joking. I'm joking. Do you want me saying, right? I'm not outing you. No.
But actually, I've been divorced once, and
But you learn and you grow.
remarry and very happy, and I marry.
What I was going to say, if we could give advice on, listen, if it's the first time you're going through it, I would say it's not the end of the world. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. I've had friends, and I always tell them this, you're going to be okay. Allow it. Like, don't force to stay with someone. If they leave you, if it's a man leaving, sometimes it's a woman. And nowadays, more women are leaving men. I think more women are filing for divorces. Am I correct on that statistic?
100% I agree with that.
Because I think men are blind that a woman will file, and women are less afraid now. And because we work more, we have career, women are filing for divorce.
No, I
and
agree.
more men are blindsided, right? And I don't know.
So I think some of the steps that you should take to get ready is, of course, you want to do some investigation on what you have. So if you're in a relationship, as we mentioned before, where you don't know what you have, you can Google stalk yourself and your spouse and find, does he have LLCs where he's a registered agent? You can also, mail is a great tool. Now, you're not supposed to open other people's mail, but you're married and there's no divorce pending.
Oh, so you can open other people's mail if you're married.
We don't want to, it's a very fine line. So
Okay.
during a
I was
divorce,
like, really?
you cannot. But obviously, when
Yeah.
you're married and you're opening up mail because you need to pay the bills, you need
Because
to
you didn't
keep
read
track
the
of it.
name that it was in the
Okay.
It's just a
It's a
mail.
fine line.
There's a fine line.
Right.
okay.
During a divorce, you don't want to open up their mail. If you're married and you're just trying to research what you own as a couple, you're going to open up the electric bill, right? So, but you need to kind of figure out, what is your partner? Is he an employee? Does he own a business?
Okay.
Is he unemployed? Is he in the Army? And is he on a military retirement track? Is he on a VA disability track? I mean, those are all things that you need to know so that when you are faced with that, when you have to start the process, you're armed with information.
And if the women are clueless, they can always hire a private investigator.
No, that's true.
And do everything.
So yeah, that's funny that you brought that up. I'm listening to everything, just and I've been, it just came out in the news that JLo's divorcing. I don't know for how many times now, and
It's her fourth time.
and she doesn't have a prenup, and then friends that have been going through the situation. So I've been listening and trying to understand a lot of it. So, like, we had talked about this, Betty and I, and that's when I was like, we should do something about this. Like, if you are a homestay, either wife or husband, and something happens and your spouse files for divorce and you're in shock, and then they tell you, let's just do this amicably, like you were mentioning, and then they do go get a lawyer. Why is it important to be a step ahead, and not just believe, even though you're trying to be amicable?
So,
Great question. Thank you. I'm glad you're here.
So the person with the purse strings is in the beginning, they know where the money is. Maybe they're the ones that have access to the money. You don't ever want to get yourself in that kind of situation. You want to be able to, if that happens, if they leave, you have to assume the worst. And you have to plan for the worst, just like with hurricanes, right? You want to, or we don't have them here, but just any kind of natural disaster, you want to plan for the worst. And so that would include knowing having a plan when that happens. So maybe you have contacted a family member, maybe you've contacted, but you need to get your hands on money. So sometimes attorneys would advise that if you have an account, you would be entitled to maybe 50% of that account. Now, at the end of the divorce, you're going to have to tally up the numbers and we're going to have to equalize it. But you're going to need cash in the beginning, especially if you're a stay-at-home mom.
Or husband, right?
Right, or husband.
But then, like, what if you don't have access to that money? How
Okay.
do they pay for a lawyer?
That's a great question. So you may have to borrow that in the beginning, but what have we learned today? Never be in that position. Do things beforehand, even if you are with the love of your life and you're like, we're going to die together, and you bought funeral plats and this is the man for me or this is the woman for me, you still need to have access to your own money. So that may mean you need to go make your own money. You know, you need to empower yourself with that. But I would not count on the court system to give you access to money before about maybe 6 weeks or 2 months into the process, because you'll need a temporary orders hearing and the courts are backed up. It takes a while to get in. Wow. And even then, you may still not be awarded what you need to
live and survive.
Right.
How long is the process for a divorce? How fast could it happen?
The fastest it can happen is 60 days from the
60
date of the
days.
petition.
Okay.
And that's assuming that an answer has been filed, and you have to wait 20 days from the date the answer was filed. It could be done as fast as, I would say, 6 months. I think you should count on 6 months. If you are in a fight, if your estate is over $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, multiple businesses, I would just hunker down, get ready to hunker down for about 2 years. It's going to take that long. So, but that's because you have no idea what you own. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have to go through the discovery process. You may have to go through depositions. You may have to do all that stuff.
I just heard from a case like that, and I was like, discovery? What is that? Like, what?
Yeah,
It's very invasive. Yeah.
They freeze everything. Well, like explain like we're 3 years old. They freeze everything, and then it's like go through everything, like
Right. So
house cleaning.
they send you a long list of questions. Who have you slept with in the last 6 months? Give me 2 years of your bank records. Give me 2 years of your credit card records. It's very invasive. It's time consuming. Attorneys love it because they can bill you for it, lots of money. You want to avoid it if you can. And the way you can avoid it is because you already have the documents. You know what's in that 401k. You know what's in the bank accounts. You know what's in the savings accounts. But there's some women that it's just not, they're not going to know. So you might need to go through that. But again, if you have someone who maybe has like $300,000 in a 401k, you don't want to spend $50,000 on your divorce, right? That doesn't make sense, right? But if you have an estate that's $7 million, you want to spend $50,000 on your divorce because maybe that would mean that you're going to get more back.
I know, but sometimes it gets so ugly that even if they have 7 millions, by the time they get divorced, they have like 3 millions. I mean, it gets so ugly.
Yeah.
And I mean, to me, you know, I'm a physician and I care more about the mental health.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way that they manipulate because of the children that drive me insane.
Yeah.
You're right.
I mean, like I see, like, talking about celebrity, Angelina Jolie and her.
Oh my God,
Oh my
yes.
gosh, that is terrible.
That's right. And they use the kids, and they're still fighting. And yeah, you're right.
I mean, it can take years.
It can
and
take years. Just
and,
getting
you know,
back at somebody.
meantime, and regardless how much money you have, I mean, why the prolonging the suffering so long?
Here's what I think. Like, do you want to keep fighting because you stay in that energy? Or do you want to just say, okay, can I live on this? Can I cut ties? Will I make more money? And I'd rather just move forward and get on with my life. I cannot keep fighting. And my divorces have been quick. And I, knock on wood, I'm staying married. No, I love my husband. I'd say it on camera. But first of all, marriage is you merge a business. It's not always easy. You have to make a commitment. We're staying married, like you said. But I think what I've learned as a woman is, if you're going through a divorce, is it worth to keep fighting your mental health, your sadness, your energy? What do you win?
The drama.
The drama, and you're like, and I know you deal with that. Like, you're part therapist, you're an attorney and part therapist, right? How can it get ugly?
Yes, it can get ugly. And then there's a point in time where I call it divorce fatigue. So they've been at it for like 6 months, a year, and at it. And then something happens where one of the sides is like, you can have everything. I want out of this. And you don't want to get to that point either. Because you don't want to have gone through the process and walk away. It's like, you sell your business, you wouldn't sell it for zero, right? You would sell it for whatever you think it's worth to you. So you've got to you've got to weigh all these things, and that's why it's so important to maybe a year before you get divorced, maybe 2 years before you get divorced. Once you have that feeling like, I don't know if I can do this anymore, I'm done.
Yeah.
Go consult with an attorney so that you can start preparing, just like you would prepare for anything. Like you would prepare for having a baby, or you would prepare for buying a house or decorating your house, or anything that you would do, you need to prepare for that as well.
Something that I also just heard that I was like, what? It was, for me, it was a crazy idea. How you can go and kind of put freeze to several physicians, lawyers, and your spouse cannot speak to them.
Right. So
What is that called?
Okay, you're conflicting them out. So if we have what is called attorney-client privilege, right? So the minute that I have created an attorney-client privilege relationship with you, I can no longer consult with someone that would not, that would be maybe suing you or your husband, or maybe you're in a fight with an ex-spouse. I could no longer represent them. So what people do, we don't have that many family law attorneys in town. I don't know if y'all know that.
For example, malpractice
Yes.
Okay.
with doctors, the same thing.
Right. So if you go and consult with people, and then that goes back to preparing, right? So maybe you want multiple opinions, but what you're doing is you are conflicting that attorney out. So if, there's a lot of attorneys that work well together in town. There's attorneys that maybe don't only practice family law, they practice a million other types of law. Can y'all imagine that as a doctor? Like, right? I mean, you're like a foot specialist and you're a brain surgeon. I mean,
great question, Heather. We all know people, and I want to make sure I don't identify anyone. You hire an attorney that's not expertise in family law, and you just made a great analogy. She's internal medicine and pediatrics. I'm not going to go to her to get a tooth pulled. I could. You probably know how to do it because you can do everything. But there's an expertise.
Right,
So
she
talk
could do
about
it,
an importance of handling and a family law attorney, or because you explain it.
So there are, and this is true in medicine too. So there are attorneys that are board certified.
Yes.
But then there's also attorneys, and so unless you're board certified, you're not a specialist. And I'm not board certified in family law, but I've decided that I just need to stay in my lane. And so I just need to focus on family law at this point. Prior to this, I was board certified, or I am board certified in criminal. I tried murder cases, did all that, got burned out.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so
super interesting.
Not really. But, so I decided later in life, once I moved to El Paso, that I was going to focus on this. And I felt like there was a need for more attorneys in family law. I don't know how an attorney can practice multiple types of law. Maybe I'm not smart enough, or I don't know, but I just feel like you need to stay in your lane. You need to know as much as you can about that part of the law.
Yeah.
I will say there are board certified attorneys in family law in town. Those are great resources. You need to try to consult with them. They'll give you great advice. But I also think that an attorney that's just focused on one type of practice is better than if they're trying to do multiple.
Yeah, for sure,
Right?
for sure. Yeah, and of course, just like it's the same analogy as going to a doctor. Okay, here's another one, and we've all heard this too. That, they're going through divorce, it starts off, let's make it friendly, let's make it amicable. We don't want to be together anymore. We don't need to hire an attorney. What do you say to that? I want to hear your expert opinion. Because I've known women who've gotten screwed by this.
Oh, all the time, every day. Probably today one got screwed. I mean, truly.
I love it. It happens a lot, right? And then the man goes and gets an attorney.
Right.
And he files, and so he gets the edge up.
Right. So I have to tell my clients this all the time. Why you're divorcing them? They don't have your best interest, right? So why are you listening to them? Because I get a phone call every day. Well, he says that this is going to happen. Well, no, that's not going to happen. He wants you to believe that that was probably happening during your marriage. You need an attorney because if you own a home together, you need an attorney.
Yeah.
Because if the home is going to go to one person, there's certain documents that you must have in order to make that transfer. If you are saying, I'm going to receive a portion of your IRA or 401k, there are quadros that need to be filed, and those need to be drafted by attorneys. And an attorney who is not representing you doesn't have a duty to draft those documents for you. So he might put on paper in a decree, she's getting $200,000 from my 401k. But that's all fine and good, but unless you go to the next step, you're not going to be able to get that money. It's just going to sit there. And that attorney, like let's say a lot of times one person will hire the attorney and say, let's make it amicable. And you try to do that, if you can. But that puts that attorney in a really bad position because they may be seeing that their client is screwing you over, right?
Yeah.
But they can't say anything to you, right? Because they have a duty
to their
right.
That's right.
Right.
And that's the way it works. So you always, you want to get an advocate who advocates for you and protect yourself. And I get it. You're going through divorce. You want to be the nice girl. Listen, you can still be you can still be kind. I don't like nice. Nice is performative.
I'm no friend.
Yeah. Like we're going through a divorce. That's exactly like
It can be
friend.
amicable, but friends, you can be in the future. Now, my ex-husband nowadays, after almost 30 years, I'm a friend.
He's your fan.
Exactly.
He's your fan.
Happy birthday.
He's probably watching this. He's your fan.
Happy birthday or whatever. But at the moment of divorce, you have to protect yourself.
You're 100%. Even when you think they're nice. You're right. And I don't want to give specifics, but it was something I learned. I was still protected, everything, because the law protects you. Like there's no 50-50, it's going to do what's fair. It may go 49-51, but the law is the law. You can't take everything. All those myths that I'm going to take everything, and you can't take, unless Texas says you did something to the kids, you can't take the kids either.
No.
That's a
Right. So unless you're going to go learn all of the laws pertaining to your divorce, I would highly recommend that you hire an attorney. And because it's worth it,
I have another juicy question. Ready? This is a good one. And I know this from a case that, you just hear through the grapevine. So let's say adultery, because it happens. We've been together for 20 years. We outgrow people who get married in our 20s. And the guy or the woman has a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and they're spending money on them. And there's no prenup, and it's part of the estate. Like, we have community property, but you're spending money on a honey over here. Can you go back when you file for divorce and say you were spending our money on someone else? You have to pay me back for that.
So that is considered a fraud on the estate because you were using community funds that were, just like in a business. If you were paying out of the business, you were giving money to someone else, well, you're not going to be entitled to 100% reimbursement. You're going to be entitled to 50% because you own 50% of that business. You own 50% of your marriage. So yes. So, for example, there may be a case where the guy is living with his girlfriend during the course of marriage. Now, is that going to get her 100% of the estate? No. But if she knows that he's flying her to Vegas,
spending money on her, buying her purse
Dubai, right, Dubai,
a $5,000 purse.
So then you can, through the discovery process, get those bank records or credit card receipts and show the court. You would have to prove it, but you could show the court these were used for chick, and so therefore that's a fraud on the estate. Right, I want 50% back.
Yeah, you can get it. I learned that. I was like, holy moly, yes. So, this is such a great topic. We can do more. We're going to do a part 2 because I think it's good, and we're going to get questions. Usually, Heather, after you're coming back.
But for mental health, I don't think that you should go to kneel and this and that.
Agree.
Really? Because it's very tiring.
Okay, no, but for the kids.
Yeah.
Right. I think that is a great way to end this is you don't want your kids to have issues, right? We want our kids to rise to whatever they were born to be. They love their parent.
Yeah.
So you'll see kids lined up at jail waiting to see their father or mother, and they're so excited. And you don't want to shame them because, as Oprah said a million years ago, if you shame the parent, you shame the child.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, that's a reminder.
I think that's a really good thing to maybe end on is that, we need to be cognizant of that. That we have kids involved and we have people's feelings and their mental health
involved. And it's
involved.
Still 50% of that child, especially if you have little children. Yeah, you're right. I don't have little kids anymore.
But little children are going to become adults.
That's right. And they do. They do. Right. You're right about
that. If you don't have kids,
see you later.
It's an important topic. You see it with celebrities, you see it with everyone. Listen, thanks for joining us. The 30 minutes went like this. We want to do part 2. If you have questions for Heather, we'll have her back because there's many more questions. Yeah.
So the main thing, as you said, always each spouse needs to get their own lawyer.
I would
and
suggest
find
it.
out what your situation is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
That's the big takeaway from today, but there's so much more. Thank you, Heather, for coming to sit with us on Amigas. And yeah, we're going to welcome you back because this is an important subject and there's so many ways to go on this, the mental health. But thank you all. Thank you, Amigas, and we'll see you all in the next one.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heather.